Well, welcome everybody. We're on to our next episode of our staff podcast. You've got Jackie Gipe here. I'm your host, as well as Chris Loisel, my co-host. Yeah, we're all here, and we're here coming at you live from Escanaba with Joe Servia.
Yeah.
So, just getting a little bit to know you more, Joe. When we get started here, give us a quick introduction. So, maybe where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Where are you currently living at here in the UP? What are some of your hobbies? Things like that.
Sure. So, I'm originally from the Neenah, Wisconsin area, which is just south of Green Bay. Honorary Uper, or at least I like to tell myself that, because both my parents were Upers.
Okay.
And were raised in the UP, so I spent a lot of time coming up here growing up.
Yeah.
A lot of time in the Munising area, enjoying the outdoors, that sort of thing. And then went to Northern Michigan University after high school. That's where I got my bachelor's degree and my teaching certification. Let's see, I moved to the Eastern UP after that for my first teaching job, after doing a year of AmeriCorps in the Marquette area.
Wow.
And then moved to Menominee when I got my job with Success 5 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been around.
I have. Been a while, been around, seen some things.
Seen it all.
Learned a lot. Definitely.
Yeah, that's great.
And then just recently, made it back up to Marquette to help us grow our student body up there and continue to help serving students in the UP.
Yeah, exciting opportunity.
Question, I want to go back to something that you brought up really briefly. So you started out doing AmeriCorps?
I did. Yep.
How did you get involved with that piece of it?
So I was in Marquette and was just looking for a way to get my feet wet in education. I guess I should step back and say that I student taught in New Zealand. That's where I finished my degree.
Oh, that's also beautiful.
Yeah, phenomenal place.
Yeah.
What age group did you? How did that come about? Did you always know you wanted to go study abroad? And
Well, I knew I wanted to. I was concerned about. I heard too many horror stories about people studying abroad and not actually coming back with any credit. And basically saying, I paid this money for this tuition,
right,
but I'm not really any closer to earning my degree. So student teaching seemed like a good option. I knew Northern Michigan University did some of that, and then, I don't speak another language, so the English thing was important. I love the outdoors, so that fit the bill as well. And then it was really nice because there's actually it's an organization over there that two former elementary educators run they come to the U.S. and do literacy professional development for teachers quite frequently. So then this is kind of their side business where they bring student teachers over to teach in their schools, and it's not there's not many high school teachers doing it, but at the elementary level, they have literacy rates that are off the charts in that country.
Yeah.
So they're kind of they're admired for that,
right, it's a big deal.
The type of training they do in the elementary schools is respected.
Cool.
So I was over there. I came back to the UP in July and did a little bit of kayaking. That's when I started there, and was looking for a way to get into the local education system in the UP and not having that student teaching experience. Obviously I value it greatly, the perspective that it gave me teaching in another country, but it was hard to have those professional connections because you didn't build any of those professional connections when you're living over the Pacific Ocean.
That's right.
So the ISD up there, the equivalent of the ISD, which is MARISA, the Marquette Elder Regional Educational Service Agency, they had just started this AmeriCorps program that was focused on literacy, and got a position through there where I was working in 3 different alternative education settings there with actually displaced youth in residential facilities. So it was the Marquette County Youth Home, Great Lakes Recovery Center, so that's youth 17 to 12 and with addiction issues, typically with traumatic pasts, and then Teaching Family Homes, which is a fascinating program. Those are students that live on campus, which is outside of Marquette, but they have histories of severe trauma and abuse.
Wow. So going back to you mentioned a little bit that you had some teachers or maybe coaches that had a positive impact on you. Can you think specifically maybe who those teachers or coaches were, and what was it that they did that made such a positive impact on you?
Yeah, you guys prepped me for this with the last PD. That was we had this conversation.
That's awesome.
So there's two of them in very different ways, and one of them was my ninth grade world history teacher, who also went on to be my football coach. But in the biggest piece of the puzzle that he brought to it was, this guy was super authentic. I mean, he was the same guy in the classroom that you would have seen around town, that you saw on the football field. It was, and he was just an instructor at heart. I mean, that was just his way. Now, what he did for me was, it was not a hard class for me, so I would find extracurriculars within the class to keep myself busy. I don't think he was always super pleased with.
Right.
And generally, I'd found that I could wear teachers out with that. Like, eventually they would just get sick of, like, all right, whatever, you're not really being that big of a disruption. You're just kind of trying to get a rise out of me. You're not going to get it. And he would just call me out on it every single time.
Oh, he hold you accountable.
Every single time, he would hold me so accountable, and he wouldn't.
Man.
It was oftentimes, you're better than this, and you're more capable than that. You should do more.
You believed
It's
it.
like, oh, when are you going to stop telling me to do more? When can I kick back and put my feet up? And that never really happened. I don't know that really happened until I graduated high school.
Wow.
In one capacity or another.
Right.
So there was him, Kurt Dietrich. He's a great guy. Still stay in touch with him, intermittently.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And then I had a physics teacher my senior year who I would say was, I don't want to say, just a very different type of teacher. Very much like just a technician, and focused on creating genuine learning experiences, but not necessarily, I don't think he was great at the personal connection piece, but the sort of the exploratory learning that he would set up in a lab setting, just second to none. Just as far as a content area specialist, I mean, a true professional.
So he got you to love and develop a passion for the content.
And he got us to teach ourselves.
Oh.
That was, I mean, you want to talk about,
That's
you guys,
powerful.
you guys are the
The
you guys
true
are,
power of learning right
yeah,
there.
you guys are the data people. I mean, it was like, there was very little explanation going on. It would just be like, all right, here's how you set up this experiment.
Yeah.
He managed to procure the technology, which at that time was not necessary. I mean, you had to take some initiative as an instructor to get that in front of students.
Right.
But you're right, photo gates and accelerometers and all this stuff that would visualize this data for us. And I mean, it was really a very practical, real world professional application of science.
Right.
And maybe, my first real taste of that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like he really kind of built a sandbox.
Oh yeah,
that
I mean,
allowed you
yeah.
to play in as a student.
Right. And he, I mean, I would say I didn't really, at the time, I mean, this class was a lot of work.
Yeah.
At the time, I was not super appreciative of it, but then when I got into my own practice, it was like, wow, this guy,
Yeah.
he was doing so many things that he certainly didn't have to do. There would have been much faster ways for him to get where he was trying to go.
Right.
If he wanted to take that route, but he didn't.
So it sounds like in your experience you've had a lot of opportunity to engage with students, especially at the high school level, with all of your experience that you've had. And you've probably had a lot of conversations with students about, their long-term goals, their short-term goals, kind of what they're doing to achieve those. If you think back for yourself now, looking back, what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self looking back? And it can be your younger self at any point in time. It can be your college self, your high school self.
Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda
Baby self. I guess I think back to high school social studies teacher I mentioned, Mr. Dietrich, of not limiting yourself. Don't limit yourself. But I think maybe a more specific piece of that is don't feel sorry for yourself. Be grittier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna step in and ask my favorite question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wrap
So
it
we're
up.
gonna change direction now, Joe.
All right.
So, what do you like to do for fun? Since you're working all the time, you gotta let loose, right? How do you do that?
How do you let loose?
Yeah. Without breaking any laws.
All right.
I know that might limit it.
Yeah. And it can't be going to work. It's not how I can let loose.
Right. Not allowed.
No, I'm a big fan of letting loose. I think work-life balance is something that maybe I take a little too seriously at times.
I don't know if that's possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that sentiment. I might feel the same way. But I guess something that's really impacted me in my adult life is just time in green space, time outdoors, and then physical activity is a huge part of my self-care routine, if you want.
Yeah.
And then probably larger than that is any opportunities to enter that flow state, right? To shut off the frontal cortex and be reactive for a moment. Now we're on a podcast, so I can't show you guys this, but week and a half ago.
Yeah.
So I mentioned, sea kayaking is kind of something that's impacted me over the last decade, and really what I've embraced about that is surfing these kayaks. I think the last time you were up here, we talked a little bit about this.
I've never seen that.
So, well, obviously it gets cold in the UP, and the ice is starting to form in the lake.
Yeah.
But I had my opportunity to do my last surf session of 2019 in a blizzard a couple weeks ago.
Oh my
Were you
gosh.
actually surfing?
I was surfing
Kayak surfing,
my
right?
sea
Kayak surfing.
my sea kayak out there with surfers though. Let's see.
Nice. Were you in a dry suit?
I was in a dry top.
Okay.
So that's me shot from the shore.
Nice. He's showing
We're
us.
gonna include this as like the
Yeah.
the
That water's
oh
like
my gosh.
ice cold.
It was 10 degrees out that day.
Holy cow.
And you were out there with a bunch of crazy surfers.
Bunch of crazy actually just one crazy surfer. This might be one of my shots that
my
came out of it.
goodness.
The quality's bad because this isn't. But so this is. That's me going out.
yeah.
Surfer coming in.
Awesome.
Right into that white cap right there.
Well, yeah. So that's where it got interesting. But anyway, so that's. I mean,
Yeah, your beard gets kind of covered in icicles.
it was. I'd never been out, and when it was that cold.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting experience when you start, so I have neoprene gloves on, right? But I start to feel ice forming between my gloves and the paddle.
Oh no.
So I can't.
Oh my gosh.
You can't grip the paddle.
Well, right. So like my hands are sliding. I can't really feel my fingers anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So you're out there, and it was good. I had it was good. I had a buddy out there on shore, so he could. I was like, keep the cell phone handy,
Just in case.
just in case.
You're on
Pop
the
up
edge.
on the other side of that white cap.
But so yeah, getting outside, getting active. I think
Yeah.
finding that endorphin release and losing some of the high frequency of the day,
Yes.
and just submitting to a process and a flow. That's big for me. I'm also a big music fan. I love seeing. I guess I like seeing any live performance. I like the uniqueness of it. The fact that this moment will only exist once in this space.
Maybe back and forth.
Right. So I try to find good music whenever I can, or some sort of other performing art.
Very cool.
Recently, I've attempted to start to learn how to cook. It's been an up and down road.
Final question. Do you commit to eating anything that you cook? Or do you maybe flex that a little bit in case it comes out non-edible?
Right. Only feed it to friends and animals.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had anything where I've really had to. I've had to just say no. I can't do it.
That means you're on your way.
Yay!
Yeah,
means you're
but
doing well.
I like to stay pretty. I like to stay pretty open to different types of foods, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What's it what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
Food poisoning, E. coli. I mean,
We could try. Run some experiments on Joe.
Oh, wow. Well, that's great that you do take some time to relax and have some fun. That way you're prepped and ready to go back into work. And Joe, thank you so much for taking the time and engaging with the podcast. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to continue working with you.
Yeah.
yeah, always. You guys do phenomenal things for the organization. So I'm